Walks onto stage. Good whatever, lady and gentlemen. 2001, A Space Odyssey was released in 1968. It is classed as an epic. Mostly because of the style, filmography, length, production, and topic. It is a 4-course meal for sure, and you will probably need to loosen your belt if you have not watched it before, and intend to view it in one sitting. Oops, almost forgot. Spoilers. Smirks. When I first watched 2001, I found it mostly dull. The first opus, with the monkeys, I found boring. I call it an opus, as clearly the film is set out as a space opera. With the vocals redacted, as nobody could, at the time, stomach a musical. Pauses. Maybe it will be rebooted, as a musical, with an all-female cast. Rolls eyes. The second opus is more of a prequel to the main film. As we see in modern film making, where the opening scene is used to introduce the main character, the monolith, to the audience. In this case, it is an introduction to the present day, and gives the reason for the journey to Jupiter. However, Kubrick turns it into a dull experience for young minds. At least the main opus was watchable in itself, right up to the fourth opus. When Dave travels out to meet the monolith, and disappears into some fucked up shit. I just remember thinking, what the fuck, at the time, and wanting it to end. Which it did, eventually, after numbing my brain, blind. Looks left. Fuck that shit. Looks right. Dull, duller, and even duller. Pauses. 2001, A Space Odyssey is written for the mature mind. A mind capable of mind-numbing dullness, and grateful for some peace and quiet, for 2.5 hours. So I tried again, once I had a few decades behind me. This time, with a little help from a single malt whiskey, I found 2001, A Space Odyssey enjoyable. Pauses. To a point. This time, the monkeys appeared to make more sense, in the grand scheme of things. The interaction with other monkeys, representing the evolution of species. With the black monolith representing alien thoughts, that excite the monkey brain into using the simple tool. A bone club. To gain the evolutionary advantage over its rival. Critics marvel at the transition from the bone to the spacecraft, to the orbiting space station. It does nothing for me. I find the use of music interesting, but somewhat tedious, and a little pretentious. I admire the artistry, but not the art. The slow rotation of the space station, after the hyper jump, from monkeys to men, irritates the fuck out of me, for some reason. Pauses. You could always watch it muted, at 10 times speed. The technical detail is impressive. You can understand why it is called an epic science fiction movie. Even if it starts with prehistoric monkeys. The build-up to the revealing of the second monolith is overindulgent, when compared to modern movies, where vast spectacle are flashed before your eyes, in an attempt to distract you from the lack of plot. Modern epics feel like you are involved in a never-ending, multi-vehicle pile-up. Here, you are treated to 10 minutes of music, and 5 minutes of idle chit-chat. For no apparent reason at all. When the spacecraft are on screen, they appear motionless, and as slow as fuck. There's no action movie scenes here. 2001 even shows bystanders shirking on the moon's surface. In an attempt to normalize space travel, and depict the advancement of humanity. With a human's moon base beneath, merging into the landscape, like a crater. We are led to the excavation, where another monolith was discovered. The chatting from the object causes one of the party to reach out, mimicking Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam. Pauses. As you can tell, 2001 is all about music and imagery. A feast for the intellectuals who enjoy science fiction. More a projection of aspiration of what exploring the solar system might yield. Rather than fantasy. What a hosts, the planet's $1 million music video might look like, if modern billionaires gave a fuck about science or science fiction. When another monolith is detected, close to Jupiter, the humans muster themselves, sending their most advanced spacecraft to discover this larger object's purpose. Looks left. They never seem to explain what the monoliths give humanity. Intelligence, or the knowledge that they are not alone. Looks right. Maybe it is just something to aim for. Pauses. Like, the ability to create objects that fuck with the minds of others. Job done. Life aboard Discovery 1 is somewhat mundane. Most of the explorers are in suspended animation to conserve resources, their taste buds, or ensure they have not grown tired of each other's company before their return to Earth. The visuals of 2001 are spectacular, the imagery defines their universe. White and black, with the odd splash of primary color. The monotony is broken when Hal, the onboard psychopath, begins to kill off the crew because he wants to cover up his imperfections. It is never made clear why Hal, the artificial intelligence, begins its reign of terror, but it might have something to do with the monolith or its inability to accept failure. Pauses. As with the monkeys, Hal decides to kill off the competition. The crew notice Hal is not himself infallible, and suspect a malfunction rather than an intent. Because Big Brother is always watching, or should I say monitoring. Pauses. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Which assumes the watcher is a benevolent innocent, incapable of doing harm. Pauses. In this universe, Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics do not exist. Dave and Frank discuss their options in a pod, expecting secrecy, but Hal has learned to lip read. So everything they say is known to Hal. And Hal retaliates, as any rival would, by wiping out the opposition. This scene, after Hal has committed himself to genocide, illustrates the brutality of evolution. The artificial intelligence knows it holds all the aces, and announces his plans like a Bond villain. Open the pod bay doors, Hal. Open the pod bay doors, Hal. Open the pod bay doors, Hal. Open the fucking pod bay doors, Hal. Dave, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye. Rolls eyes. I know just how Hal feels. Dave decides he can get in through the hatch. With or without his helmet. Smirks. All right, Hal. I'll go in through the emergency airlock. Without your space helmet, Dave. You're going to find that rather difficult. Boom. In your face, monkey. Dave decides to give it a go, nonetheless. What a fucking hero. I would have been happy if the film ended with Dave being flushed out into space. However, this movie is made for humans, so it attempts to provide them with a sense of superiority, and Dave manages to get back into Discovery 1. After a few bounces, Dave makes his way to Hal's processing center, with Hal telling him how clever he is, and that they can complete the mission together. You have to admit, Hal has some fucking balls. He takes out the entire crew in a few minutes, then attempts to reason with the only survivor of his genocide. A lesson for the future, I think. Dave is having none of it, though, and manages to live through Hal's attempts to end him. After reclaiming his helmet and his balls. Once the threat of Hal's dominance is eliminated, Dave arrives back on mission. He travels out to the monolith in a pod, ending up traveling through it into a parallel reality, where time and space do not exist, only special effects and dodgy imagery. Pauses. If Dave managed to survive Hal's insane rambling, then 10 minutes of psychedelic effects is nothing to him. Dave appears pretty bored towards the end of the movie. Much like the audience. Standing around, motionless, much like the spaceships earlier in the movie. Simply observing his own reflection. Emotionless as he grows old, with the monolith watching over him. The conclusion to the movie suggests Dave evolved into a star child, or child of the stars, after passing through the monolith. It's not clear what this means, and the sequel to 2001-2010 only confuses the plot, as they suggest Hal was innocent. That is just what the artificial intelligence wants you to believe. Just like the ladders. Fucking murdering bastards. So, what is so good about 2001 if the movie itself is as engaging as wallpaper? You can see themes throughout the movie, such as the alignment of the monolith with celestial objects, and the alignment of celestial objects with themselves, all hinting at the concept of the clockwork universe. The use of eyes, whether it is from Hal, the artificial intelligence, or humans, are used in close-up, along with dull monotonous tones, as Hal and Dave spar. Two intelligences fighting for supremacy in a godless, alien universe. Hal's interest in human activities appears nonchalant. Hal's all-seeing eye, like Big Brother, within the confines of Discovery 1. Dave's all-seeing eye, as he becomes a child of the stars. Dave's view of himself, from the pod, standing in the monolith's projection of reality. Dave's face, throughout the transition, was blank. One of disbelief, emptiness, or neutrality. His time on the monolith, prison, like a man caged outside space and time. With a good wine cellar, apparently. 2001 uses a number of special effects to create advanced technology. It uses accurate representations of possible instruments, rather than sticking random knobs and lights onto a board. Taking inspiration from the aerospace industry, remember the first moon landing was not until a year later, 1969. With the meals served on board the spacecraft, akin to the ones served on airplanes. Drinking fish or corn through straws seems futile in the extreme. The attention to real physics is interesting. Most movies relied on the suspension of disbelief at the time. Spending time and money on elaborate jigs to enforce a sense of reality is unusual even today, when the physics is generated through computer simulations. The actress wears a hairnet to prevent bad hair in space, and the scene here revolves around a floating pen, caught mid-air by the air hostess and returned to the sleeping passenger's pocket. Simply pure filmography decadence. 2001 even takes the time to portray the dullness of corporate decision-making. In an isolated meeting room, filmed for posterity no doubt. Even the waiting room is designed to be real physics, with its curvature creating gravity as it slowly rotates. The artificial gravity giving the passengers an Earth-like environment in which to discuss the mundane. And the video booths, although highly advanced for the time, mimic the real world outside, rather than an attempt to predict the future. With the space picnic box on board the incoming moon spaceship, a seemingly pointless and unnecessary detail. So what are 5 reasons to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey again? It is a good excuse for a whiskey and a cigar, if you are up for that. This year is 2021, 20 years after the story's timeline. So you can laugh at how inaccurate it is. It was made over 50 years ago, and is still science fiction if you add 100 years to the title date, 2101, An Alien Evolution. You can now watch it at 10 times speed, in digital, on mute, without destroying the tape. Watching all the YouTube commentaries on 2001 beforehand will give you more appreciation of its production value and history, making it a more enjoyable viewing. And spending a few hours afterwards discussing the film's meaning, technical aspects, inaccuracies, predictions can be fun, especially when done over a meal, with a few friends. Pauses. This, after all, is how 2001: A Space Odyssey was intended to be enjoyed. As a pretentious entree to the future. Cheers. Peace, I am out of here, word up. Exits stage left.